There's
Yeah.
a sequence of events. It's not just chaos, right? Like I think
Yes.
sometimes it's portrayed as this hormonal chaotic time. It's like that's not actually what's happening. It's a sequence. We'll start with this, it's second puberty. So we have first puberty, which we know is temporary, which we know is, turning one thing into another thing. That's what perimenopause is. It's at the other end. It brackets our reproductive years, and it's second puberty. It's the end of periods. And, the other sort of good thing about that is, so we know it's temporary. And also, I guess the other thing I want to say is that writing this book and going through menopause myself, I've reframed actually how I think about female physiology. I now have this sort of view that we have our basic female physiology, which starts at, in childhood, we have low hormones. And then we go through 35 to 40 years at the most of our reproductive years, which is amazing. As you know, I'm a huge fan of ovulation and periods and pregnancy, and all of that's amazing. And that helps us make hormones and build metabolic reserve. But then that has to end. This is the thing about, reproductive years. There's an end point, and then we revert back to our kind of more baseline female physiology. So for me, that sort of really normalized it. It's like, it's far from being, oh, I'm, no longer a woman. No, it's the opposite. Like, this is the basic female physiology. And then I'm just thankful to have had 40, in my case, about 38 years of periods, I guess. So
yeah, that's a really interesting way to think about it, I guess, because it's like, like almost like this heightened state through these reproductive years, which are so intensive really in many ways on us. And then, having this like stability afterwards.
The reproductive years are a special time, and that's true whether you have pregnancies or not, actually, I would say. I mean, obviously pregnancies are a very special part of that, but even for women like myself who did not have pregnancies, it's still, those years of ovulating, and it's amazing. And it also just for example, having menstrual cycles and pregnancies increases our metabolic rate, increases our demand for calories. So we do kind of, when we exit that, come out the other end, our metabolism shifts. And that's always portrayed as a bad thing. You start to gain weight with menopause. But again, I've sort of reframed it as like we need fewer calories in a way. And so from
less resources.
From an evolutionary perspective, I might kind of jump to that because, as you know, I might have mentioned on the podcast before I became a naturopathic doctor, I was an evolutionary biologist. And I see a lot of things through that lens. And menopause is particularly fascinating from an evolutionary perspective because all the evidence is now that even in ancient times, even in prehistoric times, there were women who made it through to 80 years old. We weren't, contrary to the sort of mistaken belief that we all died by 40. That is not the case at all. A lot of people died young because of injuries and, unfortunately, childhood mortality and death in childbirth as well. Like there's lots of hazards before modern medicine, but it was always still possible and not uncommon for individuals to live to 80. And actually what some of the research shows, and I quote a book in my book, I quote another book called The Slow Moon Climbs, where she builds the case that a longer human lifespan for both sexes evolved because of sort of beneficial selection pressure on women in their post-reproductive decades. So basically, it's about the fact that 50-something, 60-something women are so productive for their group. They gather more food than any other demographic, and they share it. And they also need less themselves. So that's the perfect member of a society, right? Like they're helping everyone. They're gathering food. They're very lean, efficient machines themselves because they don't need as much energy. And it's a good thing. It's like a superpower. It's sort of that reframing of, the shift in metabolism as certainly beneficial for our ancestors. It's a little bit trickier now in our modern world where we live with so many surrounded by sugar and processed foods. And that's what you would call an evolutionary mismatch with our ancient metabolism. We can explore that a little bit. But but just the basic message being menopause is meant to happen. It evolved. It's not an accident of living too long. It's something if we're lucky enough to live this long, that we do as women. And I think understanding all of that just changed it all for me personally. I just feel far from feeling like I'm done. You know, I feel like now this is the next exciting chapter where you get to do lots of things.